Meghan, McCain and Behar may not always see eye to eye on The View these days, but their workplace tension pales in comparison to the tumultuous relationship between former co-panelists Elisabeth Hasselbeck and Rosie O'Donnell, according to new revelations. While the strain between Elisabeth and Rosie has died down in recent years, a new excerpt from the upcoming book The Ladies Who Punch, the explosive inside story of The View, has reignited their 12-year saga. To get a better idea of what's fueling the most recent headlines, you have to go back to when Rosie and Elisabeth's paths first crossed. November 24, 2003, Elisabeth Hasselbeck is announced as the new co-host of The View. After Lisa Ling left the panel, Barbara Walters quickly began searching for a replacement. Enter the former Survivor contestant and host of Style Channel's The Look for Less, Elisabeth Hasselbeck. Barbara revealed that they had a rough time picking a new person for the gig, but ultimately decided on Elisabeth. Also in the running at the time, Rachel Campos of The Real World, San Francisco and Erin Hershey Presley from Port Charles. April 28, 2006, Rosie O'Donnell says she's joining The View. By the time Rosie came on the show 3 years later, Elisabeth was known as the staunch conservative voice on the panel. The show had already taken a much more political turn, which set up left-leaning Rosie and right-leaning Elisabeth to get into some heated conversations. Additionally, Rosie was a notable critic of former President George W. Bush. She would write about his policies in her blog, a small preview of what was about to unfold when she joined the show in the fall. April 25, 2007, Rosie announces she's leaving the program. Despite raising The View ratings and launching what Barbara referred to as an exciting, fun-filled, provocative year, Rosie and the talk show reportedly failed to reach a contract extension. It was made clear that Rosie wasn't leaving because of bad blood between herself or any of her co-hosts. Rather, it allegedly came down to salary negotiations and Rosie not wanting to commit to 3 more years. And so, Rosie announced that in June, she would be walking away from The View. May 17, 2007, Rosie comes under fire for comments about the military. Before leaving, Rosie got some major heat when she dropped a rhetorical question on The View about the military. 655,000 Iraqi civilians dead. Who are the terrorists? Rosie said. If you were in Iraq and another country, the United States, the richest in the world, invaded your country and killed 655,000 of your citizens, what would you call this? Not surprisingly, this didn't sit well with many conservative critics, who claimed Rosie was labeling the troops as terrorists. Little did Rosie know that her comments would turn out to be a major talking point in one of the biggest few blow-ups in the show's history. 6 days later, May 23, 2007, Rosie and Elisabeth get into a huge fight over the Iraq War. On the following Monday's show, Elisabeth asked Rosie to clarify what she meant. Rosie, however, chose not to respond. 2 days later, the tension mounted between Rosie and Elisabeth. Ultimately, Rosie decided to tell the world why she was staying silent on the matter. Because here's how it gets spun in the media. Rosie, big fat lesbian loud Rosie, attacks innocent pure Christian Elisabeth, Rosie said. This prompted Elisabeth to call her assessment unfair. I just don't understand why it's my fault if people spin words that you put out there or phrases that suggest things, Elisabeth explained. And I gave you an opportunity 2 days ago to clarify the statement that got you in trouble and all those things. Rosie responded by asking Elisabeth if, as her friend, she believed that troops were terrorists. Elisabeth eventually responded and said no, but told her she needed to defend her own insinuations. In response, Rosie called Elisabeth a coward. May 25, 2007, ABC announces that Rosie wants to be released from her contract. After the heated exchange, Rosie decided to leave 3 weeks before her contract was up, on June 21. She said, in part, it was because she didn't like the way producers had split the screen when Elisabeth and Rosie were arguing. On top of that, Rosie was allegedly really hurt by Elisabeth. May 29, 2007, Elisabeth claims she and Rosie are talking. Almost a week after Rosie and Elisabeth's on-air spat, Elisabeth revealed on The View that she and the comedian were in communication a lot and talked about the power of forgiveness over Memorial Day weekend. Rosie, on the other hand, reportedly wrote on her blog that they hadn't spoken and that they only had exchanged one brief email. "I never tried harder to be friends with someone than I did with her," Rosie allegedly said on her website. "But I don't think we ever got there, or anywhere close." January 10, 2008, Rosie reportedly sends baby gifts to Elisabeth. Almost a year after their big fight, Rosie told People that they had done a complete 180 and made up. Rosie even bought Elisabeth a baby gift for her then newborn son, Taylor Thomas. "He's very, very cute. I saw him on TV, and I sent him a lovely gift, and we've been emailing each other. And peace prevails," Rosie declared. She also revealed that the pair had stayed in touch via email. January 25, 2010, Rosie talks about her old friendship with Elisabeth on Oprah. The topic of Rosie and Elisabeth's friendship was brought up again on Oprah according to E! News, where Rosie opened up about the whole incident from her perspective. "We had a friendship in some capacity, and there's something about somebody being different on TV toward you than they are in the dressing room," Rosie said about Elisabeth. "It didn't really ring true for me. I just felt it was a betrayal of my friendship, and what you saw there was my hurt feelings." March 2013, Elisabeth leaves The View. According to Elisabeth's new book Point of View, she was fired in 2013 and told there wasn't anything she could have done, while Elisabeth went on to write about her friendships with Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, and Barbara over the course of her 10 years on the show. She doesn't mention Rosie in the book. May 16, 2014, Elisabeth and Rosie sit next to each other for Barbara Walters' farewell. Despite Elisabeth's hard feelings over getting axed, everything seemed to be okay by the time Barbara Walters' last episode on The View rolled around. Elisabeth and Rosie were all smiles in front of the cameras, and even ended up sitting next to each other during the segment. But behind cameras, both Rosie and Elisabeth painted a different picture. On Twitter, Rosie said that on the day of Barbara's goodbye episode, which featured all the women of The View, Elisabeth was hiding in her dressing room until she walked by and said hello. After that, Elisabeth apparently wanted to take a selfie. July 9, 2014, Elisabeth goes after Rosie when it's announced that she will be going back to The View. 2 months later, tension seemed to be rise again. On Fox and Friends, where Elisabeth was a co-host, she expressed that she wasn't very happy to hear that Rosie was returning to the TV show. "Here comes to The View the very woman who spit in the face of our military, spit in the face of her own network, and really spit in the face of a person who stood by her and had civilized debates for the time that she was there, coming back with a bunch of control, ready to regain The View with a seat at that table," Elisabeth declared, before claiming that Rosie had taken credit for producing the Barbara Walters segment on the show. She continued, "Go back to the reunion show for Barbara, how odd is this? When you have the woman who again insinuated that our own troops are terrorists in Iraq at the time, who left the show, while still at the end of her contract, to have such ease the day of Barbara's goodbye show was shocking to me. She walked around with a lot of control, and then when I had the chance to talk to her, Rosie herself told me, on set while we were mic'd up, that she produced the reunion show to have everybody together and that it was her idea. Now, would you think the woman who left the way that she did would be producing Barbara's goodbye show? Here's the shocker, it was actually her hello show." March 25, 2019, Rosie talks about her crush on Elisabeth. Rosie ended up leaving The View again in February of 2015, to concentrate on her family, after splitting with her wife Michelle Rounds. And up until recently, that was the last of Elisabeth and Rosie's saga. That is, until reporter Ramin Satuda interviewed her for a new book. In a newly released excerpt from Ramin's book The Ladies Who Punch, The Explosive Inside Story of The View, available on April 2, Rosie reveals that she had a bit of a crush on Elisabeth and loved her, but not that I wanted to kiss her. I wanted to support, raise, elevate her, like she was the freshman star shortstop and I was the captain of the team. I was going to Scottie Pippen her. If I was Jordan, I was going to give her the ball and let her shoot. But it was in no way sexualized. What's more though, Rosie declared that there were underlying lesbian undertones on both parts. She was the MVP of a Division I softball team for 2 years that won the finals. There are not many, in my life, girls with such athletic talent on sports teams that are traditionally male that aren't at least a little bit gay. March 26, 2019, Elisabeth says she's disturbed by Rosie's claims but forgives her. On Tuesday, Elisabeth appeared on The View to talk about her new book addressed the claims Rosie made. In short, she wasn't very happy about them, calling what she said reckless, untrue, and not only insulting, but disturbing when it comes to how she felt about somebody in the workplace. Elisabeth continued to call Rosie's accusations wrong, and said, whether you're a man or whether you're a woman, and you're objectifying women in the workplace, it's wrong. She also labeled Rosie's softball commentary as an unfair stereotype. All in all though, Elisabeth said she totally forgives Rosie for what she said. I really hope that we can be at peace and that we can both hold our beliefs in one hand and hold each other's hand in the other and still have a relationship that's at peace, Elisabeth said. So far, Rosie has not responded to Elisabeth's call for peace.